So I think if you have been following this channel for quite some time now, you are familiar with some of the fake frauds and phonies of martial arts. So the George Dillmans, the Countdown, all these people. But today, in this documentary, Sunday React, we are going to watch the life. It's just a short one. We're going to watch the life of Count Dante, who he really was, and what this was all about the Dojo Wars, about the people that died in this Dojo War time period. And really, I know something about his life, but I'm not that much into it. And I hope we can learn something together now in this reaction. So let's have a look and let's grab something to drink and let's enjoy. Let's learn something. Chicago, Illinois. We have subtitles? Yeah, we do have. Legend of Count Dante. The man, Dim Mak, Death Touch.
He was one of the baddest martial artists out of here. By the time 1968 had come, Count Dante had defined martial arts in the Midwest.
He was one of the few
wow, is that the sack quality
that I ever seen break a common house brick with his hands as well as his foot.
Yeah, man, that's what he was famous for.
John Keenan's comic book ad was a curiosity more than anything.
Couldn't help but like him because of his charisma, his personality, his straightforwardness, you know, but he would cut his throat.
Would he? We'll see.
People get the wrong impression about the film itself. They think the film was just about this guy, Count Dante, who was, you know, who was a 1970s era kind of, you know, hairdresser, gangster, pimp, you know, voodoo master kind of, you know what I mean? And that's all true. I mean, it's all true. But what's more important to me about telling stories like this is the history that surrounds it, is the social milieu that it grows out of.
So we're talking about a film that was made about Count Dante back in the 60s, 70s.
I knew it was going to take me at least 2 years because I didn't have any money. I wasn't going to get any money because the subject is so obscure. When I started, I didn't know what the story really was. It had to be about a whole historical period in which martial arts is introduced to American popular culture. But it was karate and then kung fu that really drove this thing. So that John Keenan
personifies
probably most of the popular cultural icons, martial arts, the mob, you know, Playboy bunnies.
The cape and the cane and the hair, you know, he was a hairstylist and he did this and he did that.
He's everything in this period. He was radical. He was supposed to have taught the Blackstone Rangers and Black Panthers, armed the IRA, you know, armed Castro in Cuba. The mythology around this, man, it's fascinating. See, I'm stumbling into this stuff, right? I didn't know that this is what was going to happen. When I started this project, I was going to do this thing about the Dojo War, this crazy guy and all these crazy claims he made. He's just like a iconoclastic character. He's somebody you know, but you really don't know. You know what I mean?
And
like
probably also you don't want to know. I have to search after this one for the film that he made. So maybe if it's available on YouTube, let me know in the comments if you should watch this together. The full-length movie about Count Dante, the deadliest man alive, famous for his Dim Mak, the Death Touch.
He could fight 10 guys with one hand, and he did this and he did that, and he killed this guy. He was part of the mafia.
He made martial arts almost a household word. He was on television. He was on What's My Line, I've Got a Secret, all of this kind of stuff he was doing. But
What I really wonder if this would be possible nowadays, because I don't think so. With the rise of MMA and pressure testing, I mean, YouTube is full of people telling you, pressure test your martial art, test it. And even the traditional guys are saying it more and more. And unfortunately, there are some people that still don't get the gist about what they need to show on social media to get, like, believed. I mean, there's a lot of bullshit in traditional martial arts. I know this because I'm coming from that type of background, but also transitioning to combat sports, because man, I want this channel to be authentic. I want to see what works. I want to find the truth for myself, what works and what doesn't. And those are the values that I want to give you. And I think with the rise of the combat sports in the last, what do we say, 20, 30 years or so, an event or a person like this is not possible anymore. I mean, the George Stillman, is he up nowadays? Does he do something? I don't know. Is there somebody else? Is there somebody else that has like this kind of cult around him? Maybe in Bujinkan, there are some dudes on Instagram and TikTok that I know that do some stuff with. They have a lot of following. I mean, 100K plus. But really, an overall controversial figure, I think that's not possible nowadays. That's no.
His problem starts when, in 1960, when he opens the doors to his schools and he welcomes everybody.
The police had a very negative attitude about martial arts people. They gave me holy hell trying to open up the school because they really didn't want young kids, especially young black kids, learning how to fight and how to disarm a person, how to use self-defense.
Yeah, I'm sure the police didn't want it.
Looked at it more negative than positive.
And you see, when you take it from the traditional way, that's what martial arts was for. It's exactly the definition of martial arts, what it was for back in the old days. In my old days, I'm not that old, but you get it. It wasn't a sport. It was exactly for this. And this impression that the police back then had, maybe was justified to a certain degree. But the bastardization that came then after the people opened the schools and just told the people, hey, look at this technique works like this works like this. And with all the cooperative students, the people were made up to believe. And nowadays, I don't know. We have a Shu Xiaodong in China that also exposes like the fake Tai Chi and Kung Fu masters that are just talking about then ifs, woods, and coulds. And in the West, I don't know if it's a kind of a development stage, because MMA and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu came from the West, and maybe a lot of parts of China maybe are not so developed, and the people don't have access, also because of the government, because internet is restricted. You are only going to see what the government wants you to see. You don't have maybe access to the stuff that it would be good to see. For example, authentic fighting and not just all the old Kung Fu movies. I love them as well. Once Upon a Time in China is one of my favorite Kung Fu movies with the portraying Wong Fei Hung, one of the most famous people in Hung Gar Lynch, which is a style that I practice as well, besides kickboxing. But man, when you only watch things like this, like Kung Fu movies, like all this propaganda or traditional martial arts, and you don't have access to other things, then I see why you are led to believe in mysticism and this cult thing that you want to follow, because sort of traditional martial arts also promote this, like, more, some do less, but it's always in traditional martial arts that you have a leader, because he's like the father or the mother of this particular style, and he or she is the highest person in the style, which has the knowledge. That is the tradition. It makes kind of sense, but traditional martial arts need to grow out of this and adapt this to new eras, which we are living in. If they don't, then sadly, I think a lot of traditional martial arts schools are going to close, because they're going to lose the students. And if you don't have students, if you don't make money as a teacher, pursuing or providing knowledge and giving the knowledge to the next generation after 1 or 2 generations, knowledge is lost. And that would be kind of sad, I think.
John Keane welcomed black students, Hawaiians, Lithuanians. You know what I mean? When you look at a picture of his school during that period, it's like the United Nations. This isn't what martial arts schools look like. It was what Black Belt called the element that he was teaching. The day that I went to the tournament in 1964, this was like bare knuckles on concrete floors. Teeth flying across the arena, people stopping the match to go look for them. See, these are all things that when I learned about, when I went back and looked at the story of John Keane, was about sorting out the truth from the fiction. There was so much bullshit around this man's name, you know. It's like, well, if I had never met him when I was 11 years old, I don't think I'd be doing this thing. You know what I mean? Because I would only know him from the Dojo War and the World's Deadliest Fighting Secrets.
John and the boys would go out and so often, you know, let's test what we're working on, see if it really works. That just wasn't my makeup, my style, and what I wanted to do. They did a lot of drinking. A lot of times they were drunk, and they were.
That's how you spot a real martial
with this Black Dragon Society, and they got into this fight.
When the fight broke out, everybody was running. When the blood started flowing, everybody was running.
In this one, Jim lost his life. One of the guys lost an eye, and it was a mess.
April 24th, 1970, John Keane came here. Within 2 minutes of going in, a fight started out. The door burst open, people were coming out. Jim Koncevic came out. He had been stabbed in the neck after being brutalized by other Chinese weapons. He was bleeding from the neck profusely. He fell in the street 20 feet down from the door here and died. John was there when the police showed up, standing over Jim Koncevic's body.
Well,
I mean, you can go and challenge other students. You can go to their dojo, but then you have to ask politely, hey, can we spar? Can we put on gloves? Can we see? I want to know. And if you ask respectfully, I know a lot of combat sports dojos are going to welcome you and help you to find the truth. If your style works or if your style doesn't work. And maybe it works, maybe it doesn't, but after this one, you know, and if you're not doing this politely, then what the fuck, man? People died. Is it really that important? I mean, come on.
first of all, I didn't believe it. You say, well, is this what martial arts is all about? I think it did a great disservice to the martial arts.
100%.
John called, and when your sensei called...
I mean, 50 years later, and we still know this. So
relationships with their instructors, but they'll do anything, you know, they'll do anything to be... They adhere to this feudalistic philosophy of, you know, your loyalty to the teacher and things, you know, and to his detriment, to Jim Koncevic's detriment, he went along with this thing.
I think we need to recognize the past in order to move into the future. John was a man that brought it to this area of the country. He's the person that was somewhat is the dynamic figure. I think that it will aid us to know a little bit about our history and where we all came from. And all of us came from John to a certain degree. John has a lot of grandkids out here. We owe a great deal to John. So I think Floyd is doing us all a great service.
Before he died, before I saw notice that he had died of bleeding ulcers, I saw notice that he had died in Mexico in a death match. And this is something in Black Belt magazine. I was like, he died in a death match. I said, here, there. And I was like everybody else, there John goes again, spreading rumors about himself. And I was like, oh my God, another story. What am I going to do with this stuff, you know? When I went and found this grave, I said, well, there's no stone on the grave. He says, well, somebody probably stole it. I said, who wouldn't want Count Dante's gravestone in their house? I said, you know, you got a point. I went back and asked, did you know the stone was stolen? He said, there wasn't ever one put on it. Yeah, it kind of disturbed me because, like, you know, everybody deserves, you know, I mean, some kind of sign of having been here. As you walk through a graveyard, these people, their memories live, you know, and so when you walk through and you see these names and you know, as you just pass through, it's whimsical, but it's human. You know, you wonder about who these people were. You look at the stone, you know, and I'm sitting there going like, But this guy did more than probably most people in the cemetery, you know what I mean? For better or for worse, he had an impact. He has his namesake, Dante the poet, said, you know, he overacted in order to have some effect.
And I need to dig in this like movie about Count Dante a little bit more. And if I find it, or if you have the link, please send it to me. Post it down in the comments, and I want to watch this. I'm gonna search it a little bit here, and we're gonna see us in the next Sunday documentary reaction video. It's just a short one here, but I hope you enjoyed it, and leave a like, leave a comment, leave a subscribe, whatever all the people tell you online you should do. And now go out there and train. Let the martial arts be legit, whatever the people tell you. Okay? Let's go.